Hello and welcome to the Business of Being a Virtual Assistant. I'm your host and virtual coworker, Tiffany Parson, and today we're going to talk about filtering prospective clients. How do you choose who do you want to work with and who you do not want to work with? It's important to have a plan, and I am going to help you with that today. This is episode number 149. Can't remember if I said that or not. Okay, so we're going to talk about three things: morals and values, communication style, work style. That is what we're going to use to filter prospective clients. That's pretty much what we know about at the beginning. When someone sends you an inquiry, what do you know about them? They may, at that point, let you know specifically what they need. And if they give you details up front, then they're probably a detailed person. If I were going to send you an email and say I am looking for a virtual assistant to help me with Pinterest, then I'm going to let you know that I need someone to help me with Pinterest to create graphics for blog posts that will be posted on Pinterest. So I might say I need you to help me to create the graphic as well as schedule it regularly. And I might not say weekly or twice a week or anything like that, but I'm going to give you details on what it is, because being on the other side of that email, I know it's great if you can get as much information on the front end when someone is seeking an inquiry, but everyone is not like that. When that first communication comes through, they're giving you a little insights about how they work. So what do you need to know in regards to morals and values? What is that all about when it comes to filtering potential clients? It's important that you do not align yourself with a business that is not a good match for you morally or your personal values and beliefs. You want things to line up because this client has the potential to be a future testimonial, a review, in your portfolio. And if it's something that goes against everything that you believe in, then how can it sit in that space? So it's best to catch it at the very beginning. So if inquiry comes through, they may not include their website, but if they do, go look at it. Find out what you can. See if you can tell what kind of business it is and does it align. If it's not included, no problem. You can simply ask them for that information in your reply as you're thanking them for their interest in your service. I would encourage you, and I think we talked about this before, I would encourage you to schedule a call so they can see you. This was a tip that I posted on Instagram. I think I posted on Facebook as well. I don't know if I posted on a new Facebook page or not. So I need to go back and make sure I do that later this week. So anyway, that's how you can get their website and take a peek. Not only do you want to know about who they are, what they do, but this gives you that little check to see, is this in line with what I'm comfortable with working with? Is this a match? You don't want to keep going down the road, because guess what? If they really like you, but you're having a hard time because of the type business that they have, you don't believe in their type business, or it goes against everything that you know to be true based on your own values and personal beliefs, then guess what? They really like you. They're going to refer you, and you're going to have more people just like them. I am speaking from personal experience because this is something that I was clueless of. I was very naive in thinking that people were similar to me in morals and values, and that's just not true. The world is a huge place, and by us working online with clients all over the world, we have to recognize that what comes with that is people that have all kinds of morals, values, beliefs, everything under the sun that we could possibly think of, regardless of whether we agree with it or not. Looking at my notes over here. All right, let's talk about communication style. Now, how do they like to communicate? Now, this is something you may not know at the beginning, because they're going to have to get in touch with you some kind of way. Most likely, they're going to find you through your website. If it's a referral, they're going to have your email. Or if they are following you on social media, they're going to send you a message. So you can't go by that right away, because they're going to use whatever they can find to contact you. But in the process of talking to them, you can find out. So I'm not specifically talking about whether they prefer to be emailed or phone call, webcam, FaceTime, Zoom, or anything like that. But what I'm referring to is frequency. Are you comfortable with working with someone that needs to touch base with you every single day? Now, let me give you an example. Let me paint a picture for you. Now, let's say you know what the tasks are. Let's use the Pinterest example since we've already started with that. So let's stick with the Pinterest example. And you know that you create the graphic and you send them the graphic. The best thing to do for someone that needs to have a daily communication, and that is like a bit much for you, is to have deadlines. So a deadline for them to tell you what they need, and a deadline for you to get it back to them. It holds them accountable for getting you the information and holds you accountable for delivering it. We are business owners. We are in control of how we want things to look. A lot of times clients will be coming and maybe you're the very first virtual assistant that they've ever worked with. But maybe this is not your first client you've worked with, and you know you like things organized. That's speaking to your work style. And having a deadline helps you stay organized, but it also helps with the communication so that you know if Tuesday is the day or Thursday is the day, you know when things are going to happen. And if there are questions, obviously questions in between. But this eliminates the need for every single day touch bases. Because if it's Friday and the deadline has been met, everything's been created, approved, posted, scheduled, you confirm it, it's all good, then there is no need to touch base on Friday. Unless somebody just wants to give you an update for next week. But every single day wouldn't be necessary. Now, on the other hand, and hopefully you have a client that's busy and does not have time to touch base every single day. Those deadlines help tremendously. It will help them as well. Whether they are organized or not, it will help them. All right, so that's the daily touching. Now, if you like for your client to communicate with you every day, or you want to communicate with your client every day, then I would say bring that up when you initially talk to them, because they may be on the flip side and like, oh my gosh, if she emails me every single day, that's going to drive me crazy. So you want to ask. This is the way so you can understand what their communication style is and what yours is as well. Weekly, if you've got deadlines, that automatically helps. And it ends up being twice a week, once a week, whatever the case may be. Once a week might not be frequent enough, depending on what your assignment is. If you are doing monthly projects, then you may not communicate every single week. You may communicate to touch base because you know when to expect the information that you're looking for. If there's a deadline, this is where deadlines are helpful. So you're not trying to figure out, okay, should I reach out now? Should I not reach out? But if it's a monthly situation, then maybe once a week until you get what you need. All right, but that's important to clear the air up front. Obviously, you would not talk infrequently, like once a month, with an ongoing regular client. So with ongoing regular type clients, you're going to touch base at least once a week. And if it's monthly, deadlines are helpful. And again, I would say once a week until you get what you need. Now, if they're on hold, then you want to set a time. When should I follow up? A month from now, 2 months from now, but always work with a deadline in place, because you have other things going on. You have other clients to work with. You want to be organized as possible. Now, if you are not naturally an organized person, you're going to have a hard time. I'm just going to be honest with you. You're going to have a hard time in your virtual assistant business if you are not naturally organized. And I don't mean organized to the extreme of being OCD or organized to the point, everything, your car is perfectly, you've got exact spots for things in the car, exact spots for things in I don't mean anything like that, but I mean work-wise. You are keeping a calendar. So For example, you looked at your calendar today and you know what you have to do for the next few days. The end of the week comes, you look at your calendar, you know what's going on next week. And if you don't, it's kind of messing with you. You know, like, oh gosh, I need to get this situated. That's the type of organization I'm talking about. Because let's say you're working with 5 clients and they've all got different deadlines. How are you going to keep up with that if you're not organized? So that's very, very important. Now, this just flows right into your work style, and I've got organization right at the beginning. Now, it's important for us to be organized. Does our client have to be organized? This is where it kind of gets a little sticky, right? Because maybe you're okay working with a client that's not organized. Or it depends to what degree they're not organized, right? So let me give you an example of an unorganized potential client. And how can you even tell at the beginning? Because this is all before you dive into their work. How can we tell that someone's unorganized? Well, I had a situation not too long ago where we scheduled an initial call just to find out what they need so I could learn about them, they could learn about me. Several months down the road, I got an email to schedule another call. And based on how the email is written, it sounded like we had never had that first call a month or so prior. And I had the feeling, I was like, I don't think she realizes we've talked before. Because, potential clients are interviewing various virtual assistants. So imagine you're interviewing 8 different virtual assistants for your project. It requires you to be organized to keep up with who you talk to and who you need to follow up with. But if you don't do that, you'll end up emailing somebody else and talking to them as though you've never even had a phone call. And I could tell through the email. And this just comes with experience. You may not realize, right away. But if you talk to someone a couple of months and they email you, they say they'll follow up, you don't hear anything, but then a couple of months later they email you and the email does not sound like, hi Lisa, it was great speaking with you, a couple of months ago, I'm following up, or I'm ready to move forward. Ready to move forward is one of the clues that they remember talking to you, as opposed to, I want to hear more about you and what you provide. Well, that first email might have said that as well. So that's a red flag that the potential client is unorganized. If they're sending you a second email that sounds like you've never contacted. And then you'll know for sure when you get on the call and you can tell that they don't remember that you had a call. Even though it was in Zoom, you were face to face, or maybe they're on the phone, or whatever the case may be, they may not remember. Huge, you guys, for me, huge red flag. It's important for my clients to be organized enough to remember that we have spoken before. Why? Well, think about this. Down the road, if we are working together and they are forgetful about things, then they're going to be forgetful and miss deadlines. They're going to be forgetful and not realize what they agreed on, even though it might be in writing. They may forget to pay their invoice. They may forget to send you what you need and, go out of town and something and completely not check their email until months later. And that's extreme, because in this situation, it was a few months later. But you get my point. You want somebody who's sharp, who at least remembers that we had a conversation a couple of months ago. And the excuse of, I've talked to a lot of people, and this is not what the person said, but I can imagine someone else may say, well, I've talked to so many people. Okay, for me, not good enough of an excuse. It's important for my clients to be organized. So that huge red flag, huge, you guys. I had to recap the conversation we had 2 months prior, and thank the Lord, I remembered what all we talked about. Can you believe that? Because I didn't prepare. I was expecting she'd be like, oh, you know what, Tiffany, I realized we did talk. I was expecting the light bulb to go off, but it didn't. And I had to recap. She asked me, well, what did we talk about? I had to recap our whole conversation. So that speaks to work style and being organized in your work. I'm talking about being organized in your work. How do you keep up with who you've talked to? Because the flip side of that is you don't want to forget that you've talked to a potential client. You don't want to forget to follow up if you haven't heard back, or if they tell you, let's touch base again next month, or whatever it is. You want to manage that, whether it's written, digital, whatever works best. Go with the solutions that work for you. And I posted something on my Facebook page today about when we're selecting online tools, and this applies to how we organize ourselves. You may like a planner, but for me, if I work with a coach and they're like, everybody needs a planner, well, planner does not work for me. A planner turns into a scratch pad. How do I know? Because I have tried to use planners over and over and over and over again, and it just did not work for me because I don't know. It just didn't work. So what do I do instead? I use a Google Calendar, and it automatically syncs up to the iCal on my phone, and I can see it digitally on my phone. Do I write it? I don't write it down anywhere else, but I'm in the habit of checking my calendar on my phone. And the paper journal does not work for me, not because I forget to look at it, but I like my paper to be a scratch pad. So, I've got calendars that I have purchased and been given, and I just turn them into a whole big old scratch pad because I don't like seeing blank spaces, whether it's a clean sheet of paper or, line paper and a notebook, whatever. If I am using the front and the back of the sheet. So to have a calendar, yes, I want my calendar full, but there's some days that are not going to be. Like Friday might not be as full, or Saturday might be empty, and Sunday might be. So those spots, to me, I need to put something on it. So I am making it a scratch pad. However, for you, having that written down on paper in a planner works best for you. So go with what works best for you, not what someone else says is best for them. Use what works best for you. Now, some people are the fly by their seat of their pants kind of people. And nothing's wrong with that as long as you don't involve other people. So if you've got someone, and not only are they not organized, but sometimes fly by the seat of your pants is like all over the place, right? That's what it seems like to me, all over the place. And nothing's wrong with you being all over the place over in your own space. But when it comes to mine and you're all over the place, I'm trying to keep up with every direction you're going in, but those might not all be all the directions that you want to land in. They just might be how you get around to the place that you actually want to go. So for me, I like for someone to go fly, and then once they have landed in the spots they want to land, then come back and say, okay, Tiffany, I want to land on ABC. And I know. But if we're doing all this zigzag, 1, 2, 3, then I am like, oh. So you have to know, be aware. Will that affect me? If that's their work style and they want to include me in that, how does that feel? Do I work well like that? If you had to be in that situation, how could you make it okay? Like if I absolutely had to be in this situation. And sometimes brainstorming to me is fly by the seat because you're just kind of splitting out all these different ideas. When I worked in corporate, I hated brainstorming sessions where everybody's throwing out ideas and you're putting them all up on the board. And part of the reason why I hated it is because those ideas they just ended up on the board and that's where they stayed. It was nothing happened afterwards. And I experienced it over and over and over again. So that I've developed, okay, this whole brainstorming thing with other people is a waste of time. I don't discount someone because that's the way they do it, but this is how I handle it, because I know that it's kind of like I'm waiting for the final decision. Like, you got 10 ideas, and what are the final ones? So you got 10 ideas. Okay, what is absolutely most important right now? Or what's the priority right now? Those are ways that I kind of, narrow the list for myself to help me stay orderly on my end. If I absolutely have to be a part of that brainstorming situation, or fly by the seat, it's still just ideas kind of thrown out there. And it will take time for you to get to know your client, to figure out when are they landing, or when are they just kind of flying around trying to, figure things out. But imagine if their flying by the seat caused them to send you urgent assignments. So everything is an urgency, everything is an emergency. How would you feel about that? And this is where those deadlines are important. The communication, how frequently to communicate, and to talk about those deadlines up front. That is going to help you tremendously. So when they want to send you something last minute, years ago, I had a client that they would send things. There got to be a pattern. Everything was cool for months and months and months. And then all of a sudden, it's where I call the whole fly by the seat. I don't know if they got bright ideas in a meeting or what, but there began to be a pattern of getting emails on Friday around 3 p.m. Eastern with the subject line in all caps, urgent. So the first time it happened, I'm like, what? Okay, so, okay, we'll work it out. And I'm not talking about a website crash or any emergency situation like that. No, I'm talking about something that needed to have been planned out sooner. So we're not talking about true emergencies. We're talking about poor planning, or, a great idea came through the brainstorm. We're going to do it right now. That kind of situation. The way I worked out that situation, the urgent request, because it happened 2-3 times. I'm like, third time, I'm like, okay, no. We gotta nip this in the bud. This is, it doesn't work. This doesn't work well for me. So I let them know that I would have to start charging extra for urgent requests. And that nipped it right in the bud. And a ridiculous amount, on top of your regular fee. Just something ridiculous so that you won't get urgent requests. That's the only time that ever happened, but it always stays in the back of my mind for future. Every client that you work with, whether you actually, fulfill a project, they become ongoing, or it's just an initial call and you realize it won't work, you'll learn something with every interaction of potential clients and clients alike. Everything is a learning experience, just like the whole thing with the lady not remembering that we had talked before. So killing those urgencies, that's one way to do that. And also letting them know about the deadlines up front, so you don't have to deal with that. I want you to keep in mind, it's your virtual assistant business. It's not your client's virtual assistant business. You decide who you want to work with based on whatever your checklist is. Today, I've just given you some things to think about and to start with, because they're very important. Being in line with your morals and values, your communication style, making sure it's a good fit for you and them, and the work style, also making sure that that is a good fit for you and them. So if you've made it all the way to the end, I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the business of being a virtual assistant. I know we've got first-time listeners and regular listeners, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Now, how do we stay in touch after this podcast episode? Because you just get one every single week. So the way we stay in touch is you get added to the email list. I want you, if you're on your phone, to text 345 345 and text the words VA START. V for virtual, A for assistant, and then START. All smashed together, VA START. And the numbers are 345 345. And that will get you added to the list. You'll also get a gift from me, which are the 15 known secrets for getting started as a virtual assistant. So I want to help you even more. If you have a question for me based on today's episode, you can email that to me, tiffany@tiffanyparson.com, or simply hit reply to the email that you receive after you sign up for the VIP list. Now, why else would you want to be on the email list? First, I don't email you like crazy, but you're going to be the first to find out about a new podcast episode. You're also going to be the first to find out about any upcoming webinars that we're doing. And lastly, if you have not heard yet, we have a whole new Facebook page for the podcast, and you'll also get daily tips for your VA business. So head on over to Facebook. I want you to go to facebook.com/TBBVA. What does that stand for? The Business of Being a Virtual Assistant. I hope I made that simple enough. We are a brand spanking new page, so it might not come up in the search if you type all of that in, but if you do the acronym, it will certainly come up when you go to facebook.com/TBBVA. Now, there was something else that I wanted to make sure I said, and I am trying my best to remember what it is, but I cannot remember. So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in, whether you're listening or watching. Again, I appreciate each and every one of you and wish you all the best on your journey in your virtual assistant business. I will see you next week. You have a wonderful and fabulous day.